believe that? He's got my autograph. And I'm thinking, no, I've got what? No, it's yours that's valuable. No, but I've got his. He's got.
That's so nice.
Well, it was a lovely
moment.
Welcome to Making an Impression, the sketches. This is our first live stream, and it'll also be available as a couple of podcasts a little bit further down the line. You just caught us getting a story from Alistair McGowan about Frank Worthington. So if you know your Frank Worthington, you'll know why Alistair was upset that Frank passed away a few months ago, and he was quite a character. But we won't dwell on that. Let's introduce everybody. First of all, I'm Simon Lipson, as you know, the host, and let's say hello first of all to Hannah East. Hannah, you were on the show 3-4 weeks ago, and at the time we were kind of, I was certainly blown away by your unbelievable male football manager impressions, not least Sean Dyche. And Alistair is absolutely intrigued to hear your Sean Dyche impression.
You want to hear a bit of Sean, do you, Alistair?
Yeah, so before we get anywhere on this show, let's get down to Sean Dyche.
Okay, so, let's just go into it then. I thought I'd have scared you off last time because I thought it's just a bit of a weird concept, a woman just speaking like Sean Dyche of all people. But, he's been working really hard at Burnley. And, Turf Muller's banging on a Monday night, and the lads have done really well. And he wanted Aguero, but Aguero's not keen to come to Burnley. It's a real shame for the lads, if I'm honest. But yeah, here we are.
It sounds like the kind of vocal, kind of gymnastics there that I just would scare the life out of me. You're down there. Because I do Sean as a kind of I kind of squirted out of a tight throat, it would just be, talking like that, a bit more sort of whispery, like that, and to me that is as far as I dare go with the growl. So where are you finding that?
So I'm finding it a bit higher. A bit higher up in my throat, so it's very similar to it kind of happened once. I was telling my kids off, and I said, "No, don't do that, Bradley. Come here." I said, "Come here," and my husband was like, "Oh my God, you sound like Sean Dyche," and I was like, "Well, like Sean Dyche from Burnley." And then it just kind of progressed from there. And I think my husband was a little bit intimidated, to be honest. So were my children, and it works. So if ever they're naughty, stop it now. We've had enough. Then they'll stop. It's brilliant.
Well, this is great stuff. I think that's just interesting how sometimes the voice comes out of nowhere. I started doing Jeff Goldblum, and I don't really know where it came from, but I noticed myself going, yes, and it turned into that, very good, sure, and so it came from me just going, I wasn't trying that hard to find it. Now I'm obsessed with it. But look, let's move on before we get too deeply into the production of voices, particularly growly ones. Let's say hello. I'm sorry, he's been sitting there patiently waiting for an introduction, and it is, of course, the brilliant Alistair McGowan. Alistair, how are you doing?
I'm fine, and I misspelt my name because my typing leaves a bit to be desired, clearly, and it didn't autocorrect. So I'm now Alice Satire. Which is appropriate, if you're doing a satirical show, but we're not really. We're just messing around.
I have discovered that I can change it. Now, just watch this little bit of magic.
It's upsetting me.
Here we go.
Oh, no, well, you've got an extra A in there now. We've got an extra
Alice.
Oh, wow. No.
Hang on, we're still not quite there.
We're not quite there.
It's still not quite there.
Can you take the other A out? I once saw my name misspelled with 7 misspellings by a man who was waiting for me to pick me up in a car. There were 7
How am I doing?
Incorrect. Yeah, that's better. That's perfect now.
Well, finally, we've got the real Alistair McGowan. Alistair, you've been on the show a few times. What have you been up to? Because we're sort of, we're kind of edging. I'd say edging out of lockdown, although we might be edging back into something. But have you managed to get things going on the performing front?
I've done about 2 or 3 Zoom gigs, and I do a regular voiceover for a well-known betting company. So that's been going on. But otherwise, no, I'm looking forward to getting back to this new show that I do, which I'm doing in Lichfield Cathedral on the 16th of July, which is looming, which is when I combine my stand-up comedy and impressions with playing 13 or 14 pieces of classical piano music, which is a bit of a bizarre experience for all concerned. But I think it's the only show in which anybody's ever gone from playing George Gershwin to doing an impression of Roger Federer within a breath. I may be wrong. It may be the first show when a piece of Debussy has been introduced by somebody doing an impression of Harry Kane. I might be wrong. Maybe, a lot of top pianists, do an impression of Harry Kane before they start playing a piece of piano music. I don't know what they're like, but, that's the way that I do things, and it seems to work. It's a bizarre idea, but, it does work.
It is a bizarre idea. I had a friend many years ago, a friend of mine who's was a solicitor, this chap, and his son, extremely well brought up young man, went to a very posh public school, and he played violin to grade 9, I think. But he was also on the schoolboy books of QPR as a goalkeeper. And I thought, this is such an odd bit Patrick Bamford, that, isn't it? It's a bit that kind of fish out of water, slightly too upper crust.
David James, apparently, I read about him this weekend in the paper, and he had a show on Scala FM. I don't know if it's a regular show, but he's doing a show about his love of classical music, and he was saying about how difficult it was for him when he was in goal for England, and there was a talk of let's get a playlist, and he wanted Beethoven's Ninth Symphony on there, and they were going, you can't have that, but it's just as valid as any other sort of music and just as inspiring. So it's really pleasing to hear that. It's not exclusive. That's what my piano show is all about, really. I try and make it as accessible and understandable. And it's still emotional, or more emotional, because I take the short pieces, not big, sonatas or whatever else. I've only been playing for 5-6 years, so I can't play those anyway.
Well, so I'll urge everyone to go and see your show. Where can they get tickets?
Oh boy, I don't know. The usual internet thing. It's called the Piano Show. So it's my name and the Piano Show. And there's one date in Lichfield which is sold out, I believe, in July, and then the rest are October, November. Places like Hereford, Malvern, Tetbury, Exeter, Norwich, Chipping Norton. I can't remember the rest. That's about it.
Well, I urge everybody to look that up, go and see the show, and see Alistair. What you need to do, of course, is play the piano as Harry Kane, rather
with
than
your chin.
Mean.
I know, nasty.
Well, look, what we're going to do, I think we're going to get underway with a sketch, and this is an interesting one. It features Roy Keane. Okay. And Micah Richards and a Sky Sports presenter. Now, you would think the Sky Sports presenter would be played by Hannah East, who is a Sky Sports presenter. But in fact, Alistair's going to play the Sky Sports. I cannot say Sky Sports presenter. And Hannah's going to play Roy Keane. And I'm going to play Micah Richards. It's a sketch by someone called Kate Lipson. That name might ring some bells. Anyway, it certainly does in our house. Kate is my youngest daughter, and she's quite a good writer. Yeah, we like her. So this is Sky Sports Studio, and away we go, Alistair.
Welcome back to Sky Sports. Ahead of the new season, clubs have been releasing their new kits, so we decided we'd do a little review of our favourite ones. Micah, Roy?
No, I'm not fucking doing that.
I told you you wouldn't. I told you.
No, we're supposed to be talking about football, not handbags.
You don't think then, Roy, there's any correlation between looking good and playing well?
No, back in my day, if a lad had a pot of hair gel, it would out the window, not the gel, the player.
Oh, it's all changed now, though, isn't it? I mean, I was speaking to my best mate, Raheem, and he told me the boys are always checking their hair before they go out. Maybe a little cologne.
Cologne in a dressing room. In my day, if we saw you with a stick of deodorant, you'd be stuck it up somewhere else, all right.
Oh, I love a bit of dressing room banter. Nowadays, some of the lads use a bit of concealer, if they're having a bad skin day.
Nah, in my day, if you'd admitted having skin, would just set your house on fire. What on earth is that on my screen?
Well, this is Chelsea's away kit for the season.
Nah, the stripe with the socks. Do me a favour. Disgusting.
There we are. Excellent.
There we go. I was dreading that. Dreading it.
It was beautiful. It was delivered with appropriate aggression and disdain. We were talking about this with Al Foran recently on the show, and Al Foran does a lovely Roy Keane, and what he does with Keane, he takes it up here all the time, all that. And I said to him, it's interesting because I'd never really gotten that, I'd never taken that on board, that actually Keane, for all his kind of aggression and disdain and snarling, he actually talks like that. There's very little in the voice. It's kind of in the pose and the attitude, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's what I find that's interesting, because when I try and listen to him to impersonate him, I listen to his analysis. So rather than I always listen to when he's kind of very passionate about Manchester United, he's analysing a game, so he's very quite a bit deeper than usual. But I think if I was to take a step back and maybe think, how am I going to impersonate Roy Keane, I would go a bit higher. But naturally, as a female, my pitch will be higher anyway than somebody like Al. So maybe that's a bit in between.
That's the problem.
I'm pleased to say we've got English with Andrew. I'm not sure whether his name's Andrew English or his name's actually English with Andrew, but he's watching the live stream. He says that was amazing, Hannah East. So it's lovely to get that kind of direct feedback. Yeah. Alistair, we were talking about this because there was a little bit of horse trading over Roy Keane, because I can't do him, and I was hoping Alistair would do him, and you weren't very keen because it's not in your kind of not something you've worked on.
No,
but we were talking about the idea of the female voice doing the male voice, which Hannah does so brilliantly. But of course, you've taken on some female voices, haven't you? And there's your Jo Brand, your Dot Cotton.
Yeah, I mean, Dot was a long time ago now, but Jo sort of goes on and on and on. So, yeah, good for her. Yeah, it's quite unusual. I think you always get brownie points with an audience, whether it's live or on the radio or even via Zoom and Twitter. Well done, Andrew, with English. For doing it just doesn't seem to belong, really. But it's very difficult to get a pure sound, and sometimes I'm doing things and they've written a female voice for me to do if you're doing various characters, and you think you can't, as a male, get that pure female sound. You can't. But today is interesting because all these sketches, we talked last time about which voices are suited to your own voice, and nearly everybody today is not an A-list voice of mine at all, and it's partly because they are all higher, and I'm much happier with people like Shearer, who've got that deep thing going on, and that's just how they talk. Or years ago, obviously Hansen, he had a similar thing where it was all right down there. And even the likes of Trevor Brooking, who I used to do, years ago. I mean, nobody even remembers Trevor nowadays. But, his voice as well was, was quite deep. But the people like, Micah and Roy have got that higher timbre. I did listen to Micah just in case I had to do him, and I'm glad I didn't. But the one thing that sometimes you try and do when a voice is new is to think of a funny thing that will help you remember it. And the thing with Micah is that he always sounded, when I was listening to him, like he's about to vomit. Yes, I can't begin to do it, but
it's retching. Yeah,
and I thought, that's an interesting thing to think if I ever have to do it, but I'm glad I didn't, because
that's a lovely key. That sometimes I always think something like Wayne Rooney. I mean, I can't really do Wayne Rooney, but he always sounds like he's on the edge of crying. Something about his voice, and so when I'm trying to do the voice, I think of that particular kind of emotion, and that would be how I would try and feed it in to the voice. Is that something, Hannah? Is that a technique you use?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I find is, and that's these scripts today, apart from Roy Keane, I haven't done any of these impersonations before, and I always need a one line to get into it. So say Holly Willoughby, it's dancing on ice. I'm here in the studio, or Cheryl Cole, is a fail. Like, I've totally smashed it. Or, I'm trying to look at, say, Alex Ferguson. Oh, absolutely fantastic. No, your players are being fantastic. And you kind of, Billy Fair's like, yeah. And you need that line to get into the impression first. Yeah. So with a script, it's sometimes very difficult because you think, I need to, get that key right first before I actually start, or have that phrase in your head, which makes doing scripting very, very difficult.
I'm sure one of the things that I used to do a line in my last time I was doing a stand-up show live, which is about 2 years ago now, of what helps sometimes is the line that it sounds like they would say next, which is basically their attitude to life. It sounds like that's what they're going to say.
Yeah.
And for me, you mentioned Cheryl Cole, that reminded me, but one I had with Steve Bruce's line that he always sounds like he's about to say next is, I can't quite believe they've given us the job, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And it just sums up.
Yeah. Or he's always like, I just want the Newcastle fans to like us, that kind of thing.
I can't quite believe they've given me the job, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Cheryl Cole, my woman with Cheryl, when I did her once, was, and that's why I had to kill him. It always sounded like that's what she was going to say next, and that's why I had to kill him. This is very emotionless.
Yeah.
But those phrases do help.
So sometimes it'll be a word or it'll be a phrase. Sometimes it'll be an attitude. I remember, Alistair, we were talking, I can't remember, was it Robbie Savage, where you were telling me you placed the voice coming out of the top of his head, or your head rather? Is that
no, it wasn't Robbie. Robbie just comes out of the mouth because he just doesn't stop talking. So no, Robbie's quite, you just got to stand back from the microphone because he just shouts absolutely everything. But no, the one who goes out of the top of the head is actually Raymond Blanc. Raymond Blanc is like that. So it's not like that, which is at the back, but it's sort of like this. It goes at the top of the head. It's very difficult to describe it. You don't know Raymond Blanc or don't understand the voices, but that's a different placement.
This is the interesting idea that I don't know if that's a kind of an actor's approach to producing a voice. For me, everything was, I'd probably start with what's the feel of it, what's the accent that I'm going to try and emulate, and then start working in, the kind of the layers of the voice and the nuances and the little touches and the ticks that inform it. But as I've said many times on this show, I'm the least forensic impressionist in the world, and I'm probably talking to the most forensic impressionist in the world. Alistair, I know that you're probably going down to the postcode to get that accent right, and that's
not with the characters today. They're all people I've looked at and gone, not for me. And then here they all are. It's a question you get asked all the time. Interviewers love to say, is there anybody you can't do? And you go, well, there's a few people I can't do, but actually today,
today it's all the scripts.
Yeah. Well, look, this is a cracker. We're going to do a Line of Duty sketch, which is I think it's time we got onto this one. This is written by Gregor Patton. I think this might be Gregor's first sketch on the show, and it's a beauty. And we've got a lot of characters here. I'm going to take Ted Hastings because I want to really, and Alistair didn't put his hand up for that, and you don't really watch Line of Duty, Alistair, so that's an issue.
No, I'm allergic to police things and murder, so that was both of them. So no, I've never seen it, but I've only seen it through Gogglebox, which is a great shorthand for impressionists. If you don't want to watch the whole program, just watch Gogglebox. I know everything that happened in Line of Duty. They showed it every bloody week, so I know all about age.
You're going to take on Stevie on Honor, who I would normally do like that as a sort of.
That's very good.
Effort, So, but you're doing that. I'm going to do Ted. We've got Eric Knowles, which I think you're going to do Eric Knowles for us.
Yeah, again, I
quite
don't
like
know
those fusty old presenter types.
He wouldn't like that, would he? I've never really watched him. I did listen to Hastings, but you do Hastings. I'm
going to do Hastings only because I've put some effort in.
Yeah,
and and then we've got Fleming, of course. We've got Kate Fleming. And that will be, and Davidson. We've got Davidson as well.
Who's doing Davidson?
You're doing Davidson. Davidson is the ferocious, starry-eyed character played by Anna Maxwell Martin.
Oh, I thought it was Kelly MacDonald.
Is she the Scottish lady?
Oh, sorry, you're quite. I'm going off my rocker. Forget I even said that.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry. So I'm doing. Hold on a second then. So I'm doing Davidson. She's a Scottish lady, isn't she? Where she's very much at the back of her mouth and says no comment. That kind of lady. Right. I'm doing her.
Just testing you to make sure you're paying attention. Okay. So we've got Line of Duty, Off Duty. And you'll have gathered.
Stall holder. Will I do the stall holder? I'll do the stall holder because it's either side of yours.
You'll do the stall holder. Okay. Right, here we go.
Right, there we go. I haven't read through the Davidson. I do apologise. Okay, right, let's do it.
There's not much of it.
Joining us on Bargain Hunt are two teams looking to nick a profit. First up, it's the red team, workmates Ted Hastings and Joe Davidson.
You need to get your facts straight, sonny boy. I may know the wee lassie through work, but I wouldn't be so bold as to say we're actual mates. What do you say, DCI Davidson?
No comment.
I think you'll find it's me and Kate on a blue team that are mates. Okay, well, here's £300 for each team to spend on 3 items.
Don't touch that, Joe. We can't be seen to be taking money from unauthorized sources under any circumstances. Any circumstances.
It's okay, sir. He is the BHP.
I know very well he's the Bargain Hunt presenter, but BHP or no BHP, we can't have any part in underhand dealings. Any part.
Okay, teams, your hour starts now.
What do you think about this, sir? It's a complete set of Royal Dalton figurines from a Christmas nativity scene.
Just a Virgin Mary and a wee donkey.
Yeah, they're all there, as well as Joseph and the 3 wise men.
I don't like it. I'm here for one thing and one thing only. Bent copper.
Like this arts and crafts twisted copper hat stand.
Well spotted. Good work, Joe. Bag it up and stick it in the van, and not a word to anyone else about this. Understand? Not a word.
So that's 1 item for the Reds, but what have the Blues got their eye on?
I love retro clothes, mate. What do you think of this rain, mate?
A rain mate, mate? What's a rain mate?
It's a sort of plastic hood that protects your hair from the rain, mate.
I don't like it, mate. What about this set of Beatles figures? I found Paul McCartney, John Lennon, and I think this one is George Harrison, mate. Mate?
Sorry, mate. I'm looking for the 4th man, mate.
Oh, don't worry about Ringo, mate. Here's a Harry Potter figure. We could draw a beard on it with a magic marker and say it's Ringo, mate.
We are at AC12, mate, and we can't bend the rules by passing off a beardy Harry Potter as a Ringo Starr, mate. We're better than that, mate.
There's an Elton John figure here, mate.
Give the magic marker, mate.
Well, that's 1 item each, but it looks like it's about to kick off as both teams are heading for the same store.
Now, I don't like to pull rank you two, but we have had our eye on this stall since the hour began, and we have had first dibs on anything the stall holder has to offer. What bargains do you have for us, fella?
Oh, these are really, really special. They're in their original box, which bears the magical name of Tiffany's, no less. They are absolutely stunning.
Hurry up, fella. The suspense is killing me.
All right. If I remove the lid very carefully, look at this stunning pair of clasps. Buckles.
Mother of God. What an anticlimax. Climax? Oh, I thought I did it so well up to then.
That was so good. You were brilliant.
That
was really good. It was really good.
Well, it does, there is something to be said for putting some work in.
These are very strong accents, Hannah, that you're doing. They're very strong accents as well as
probably not that strong, but I thought I'd, spruce it up a bit with some vowel signs. It is interesting with that, because I've only just learned that really in the last day. And like a lot of impressions, it hasn't bedded down. So when I was doing it a bit earlier this morning, I absolutely had him on toast, beautiful, absolutely, it was great, right? It was absolutely perfect. And then I haven't done it now for a couple of hours. I haven't thought about it because I'm preparing for the show. And when I started, I could not find it at all. And it just took me 3 or 4 lines to get to it. And it's something, Hannah, because your Fleming was absolutely brilliant. You've just learned that. So how have you, what process have you gone through to nail that down?
I think, well, I like doing regional accents. So I love, my mum's Scottish and my dad's Irish. So what actually happened growing up is, on Christmas Day, you'd ring in Scotland, do it, hey, you had a wee nice day, Hannah, what you been doing? And then we'd ring my like father's parents are like, have you had a nice day, Hannah? What have you been doing? Have you had 32 presents? Have you sat down? And it's kind of, ever since I've been younger, I've loved to imitate. And I actually get anxiety sometimes when I do a Scottish accent, because when I was about 11, I thought to my friend, why don't we Skype school? I'll phone the school, just pretend to be my mum, I'll do a Scottish accent, it'll be fine. We sat in the park and had a Calippo, and received a phone. I phoned the school with my my new phone, you know, the like retro ones where it cost about £1 to ring a landline. And then I phoned the school. I was like, oh, hello, it's Mrs. Creelman here. Hannah would be in today. She's having a photo shoot with Nina. And we were sat there laughing at, you know, the swings. And I actually spoke to my mum's friend who was a receptionist. Had a conversation how my mum had lost £1. Oh, I've lost £1 at Weight Watchers this week, star of the week, see you next week. Next thing, my form tutor was actually stood behind the receptionist and said, no, Hannah's not a photo shoot with Nina. Phone her mum and see where she is. Now, the worst part about that wasn't having my my prefect tie removed. It was the fact that the receptionist made my parents sit down with my form teacher and said, go on then, Hannah, what did you say? And I was like, hello, it's Mrs. Creelman here. And they're like, yeah. And then what did you say? I lost £1 at Weight Watchers. And I was like, it was the worst experience, because they made me repeat the whole thing. And my mum was like this the whole time. And I thought, I can't believe I've just mimicked her. But the receptionist was like, what really upset me, Hannah, is I really thought I was speaking to your mum. And I was like, but you should be so proud of me that I sounded so much like her. So every Friday after that in assembly, the teachers each week used to get me to impersonate another teacher just to take the mickey out of the teachers, really. So that was kind of, I just get a bit nervous with the Scottish accent, because I always feel like my mum's going to come and take my tie, my prefect tie off me or something, which is, I'm 35 years old. It's not going to happen, but, you know, it gets me a bit scared.
Well, incidentally, if you just heard a door squeaking, it was my door, my wife rushing in to say that I'd misheard Alistair about me having a strong accent, and he was talking about Hannah. So I probably went off on one there about the accent. That was nothing to do with me.
It was a strong
anyway,
accent.
I've now squared off my embarrassment, and we can move on. This is just the wonders of live streaming. We've got a couple of comments in, by the way. From our users, of our listeners, I should say. Here's, I'll bring it up on screen. It says, this is from a Facebook user. I mean, we don't know more than that. He loves Alistair's Alan Titchmarsh sketch on Big Impression from years ago. I'd love to see a few more words of that impersonation, if you'd be so kind, Alistair.
Goodness me. Well, I don't know which one he means or she means, but it's a while since I did Alan, and he's quite hard to do. He's one of those, actually, that when you do him, you realise how similar he is to somebody else. He's actually very, very close to Alan Bennett, and you have to be very careful not to get a little bit deeper and to slip into that. But thank you for enjoying it. I've never been asked to do Alan before.
We've got another fan. Another fan. Look, Jonathan Isabi on accents. I remember the brilliant Alistair talking his way around a UK map on TV about 25 years ago. And Jonathan has done likewise on student TV, doing the weather forecast in all the local accents. It's interesting that actually, because I think the idea of working your way around, you know, the UK, and perhaps you could do the same in America, or perhaps even South Africa, I don't know, Australia, but it's something like, I don't know, I guess most impressionists have had a go at, you know, can I do every accent around the country? Hannah, is that one of, you know, have you taken that journey?
I have, yeah. I actually did a video on my YouTube of that, with a map just going around the UK. You know, sort of starting in Newcastle and that, going to Yorkshire, and going over to Wales, you know, Northern Ireland as well. And then you go to Birmingham, you know, then the Midlands and that, like, into Duck, and then, you know, down to London and all that. You know, it's really nice all the way. But it's trying to get the accents in as quick as you can to make a short, sharp video that's, it's fun, though. It's you imagine yourself being in a car and stopping off at a service station en route. The accents in this country are just fascinating. I just find them amazing, really.
The ones that I was brought up in Worcestershire, and I always had a slight bee in my bonnet. And it's not, I'm as guilty as anybody else, that when you hear a rural accent done, people just tend to do an ooh-ah accent wherever you are. And yet there's such a variety from I live near in Shropshire now, and the Shropshire accent is different because it's nearer to Wales, but Herefordshire is different because that's slightly nearer to Worcestershire, which is different again where I came from because that's nearer to Birmingham. And then the one of my favourite rural accents, which I'm just starting to hear in football for the first time, is actually Chris Sutton, because he's from Norwich, and you're starting to hear that sound a bit, and you never heard that one before. And he's doing it because he's from Norfolk, and it's a very hard one to do, actually.
Yeah.
And I love that one, but you never hear that, and you never hear it done very well by anybody who's imitating it. And Cornwall and Devon, and they're all different. Plymouth, But again, you hear somebody from that area. I remember Trevor Francis years ago was one of my favourite people to do, and I had no idea that Trevor's accent was actually very typical of Plymouth. I just thought it was the way Trevor talked. But when you hear people from Plymouth, you realise that he's actually got that accent that is very specific to that area.
He's one of those people that always strikes me as having a blocked nose. Everything's blocked. All those sinuses are struggling. They're desperate for some Vicks just to release it all. It's all a bit like Keir Starmer, isn't it? It's got a slightly.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
that's a tough accent. We've been working on that. I know Alistair, Rory Brenner was having a go at Keir, and he's done a brilliant job with it on the show. But we've sort of coming away from it feeling it's a tough one to nail. That just a kind of. It's almost like a robotic thing going on. Anyway, we're going to do the third sketch now. Happily, I'm not in it. And it's Mary Berry on life stories. This one is by our script editor and frequent contributor, Rachel E. Thorne. We've got Piers Morgan, which is, I don't know if that's on your B or C list, Alistair, but it's, we're going to hear it.
Definitely C list, but the C doesn't stand for A, B, and C. C.
And we've also got. By the way, we've had a thank you from our Facebook user who loved your quick titch, a little bit of quick titch, and we've got Mary Berry. So that will be for Hannah. I'm gonna just have a cup of cha, and. So this is it. It's Mary Berry on Life Stories, and take it away, Piers.
Okay, so welcome back to Life Stories with me, Piers Morgan. So Mary Berry, I'm delighted to have you on the show again, especially since you were made a dame in the Queen's birthday honours list last autumn.
Thank you. It really is the icing on the cake.
Brilliant. Yeah, very witty, Mary. Well done. Of course, you were honoured with a CBE, weren't you, in 2012?
Well, yes, good point. That was the icing on the cake. Being a dame is the cherry on top.
Excellent, excellent. And now, I believe you trained originally at the Cordon Bleu School in France.
I cut my mother's apron strings and rolled up my sleeves and rose to the occasion.
Okay, all right, yeah. Now, you've written over 70 cookbooks, haven't you? Many of which have sold very well indeed.
Well, like hotcakes, you could say.
I could say. I didn't, but I'll let you do that. But you're best known, aren't you, for being a judge on, several baking programs. Is that difficult?
It's a piece of cake.
Were you devastated when you left the Great British Bake Off?
I have my fingers in lots of pies.
But how did you feel when your partnership with Paul Hollywood ended?
Well, he was in it for the dough.
Yeah, but weren't you horribly hurt?
It's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, all right, Mary, can you stop the baking puns, all right? I mean, I'm trying to winkle out some sort of deep-seated emotional demons here.
Well, look, pal, you asked for it. I've had to put up with 10 years of people making fun of my soggy bottom, and I'm sick of it. So from now on, I only answer in baking puns.
All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Take your point. I'm sorry. Okay. Satisfied? Now, please answer properly.
No.
Well, why not?
Because you can't have your cake and eat it.
Lovely stuff. Mary Berry with that lovely cut glass delivery. Alistair, I think that has moved from C to B list, if I'm honest. That was, if anything, it's edging towards the A list. It was really good, actually, because
amazing.
He's difficult, isn't he? He's one of those voices.
I'll tell you why he's difficult. if you just let me speak, I'll tell you why he's difficult. All right, he's difficult because to get an impression of him, you've got to watch him. That's why he's difficult.
Yeah, it's
Watching
true that there's a lot in the movement and the
no. I mean, you've actually got to spend time listening to that man.
I thought you meant the only way that you make the voice work is to actually see him.
No. I was being very rude about Piers Morgan. I'm not normally rude about people, cryptic. But I watched his interview with Keir Starmer, partly because I thought I should work on a Keir Starmer impression, but I haven't done yet. But Piers was so bullish in that interview, and it was just rubbish. The whole hour, it's just a rubbish bit of television. All the things he could have asked him, and he just was pushing on the same subject, trying to make him cry about his background and his dad. And you just think, "Oh, leave it out, Piers, move on." And he's being so aggressive, and he's so cold about things, and he's just this sort of pally thing where he tries to get on people's side, and you can tell there are very few people who really I don't like in the world. But
we've talked about that before. The idea of doing impressions of people you really don't like, and I was took the view that if you could not like them and do a good impression and show how much disdain you have for them within the impression, then it was probably just about worth doing. But even there was some beyond the pale, and I'm sure, Alistair, you would have done back in the day Jimmy Savile. I certainly did him, and I did Woody Allen, and now I feel slightly embarrassed to do those kinds of voices. I don't know if you have a similar thing, Hannah. Is there any voices that people that you don't like, or people to whom whose voices you wouldn't try for that very reason?
I think a lot of the kind of like the Kardashian, like, "Hey, you guys, I've been checking out Function of Beauty, which is all over Instagram." That kind of the Kardashian vibe, that it's one of those to tick off the list. And if ever I do a YouTube video, it's like probably chuck a Kardashian in there, like one of the sisters, like, "So I really love my sisters and my mom," that kind of thing, that sometimes you feel that you should do it for the sake of it, but actually they're not really people that you're like, "Oh my god, I'm going to do an impression of Kylie Jenner or Kim Kardashian today because I've worked really hard on it." It's very much like a token impression, really, that tick off. Yeah,
interesting. I don't I mean, of course, I don't do a lot of impressions these days. I just do the ones that really appeal to me. But actually, this show has it's forced me really to try and address some of these voices. And there are people I don't particularly want to be doing. I mean, Boris. Fortunately, other people are doing Boris for me, so I haven't had to worry. But there was a sketch we were going to do today, but we ended up not doing, and it involved David Cameron. And I was working on that, and Alistair and I, again, we'd had a little email exchange about Cameron, and I just didn't fancy doing it. And that was as good a reason as any for me not to include the sketch today. So there we are.
Well, I tell you what. I talked to Rory about David Cameron years ago when Cameron was in power, and everybody was struggling with him and doing him here and there, and never quite getting it. And then Rory just got him perfectly, and we were at something together, which was rare because we were always booked apart, so I never really see him. And he did this Cameron for me. I went, "Rory, that's fantastic." And then in about a week, he'd lost power.
Yeah,
you think, "Oh, he just got him," and then he'd gone. Which is the same with football managers. I was really cross last week when Ancelotti left Everton because he has a great voice. Ancelotti is very good for comedy, and it's very, very fun. And then he's gone back to wherever he's gone back to, Madrid, and you think, "Oh, he was going to be a mainstay." And in fact, you mentioned Rooney earlier on. That's one thing always is my ex-producer on my TV show years ago always used to say, if someone's got a funny voice, you can do them almost regardless of the material because the voice will make people laugh. And Rooney actually never fitted into that category. I would never have looked like him anyway for the TV, but he's just got one of those voices. It's just very, very airy and very slow, and it just doesn't put a joke across, in the way that you want it to. I mean, Gerard almost is better because he's got that, and because he's more exaggerated. There's something funny about it. But Wayne's just, very withheld, and it just doesn't put a joke across. In the same way that you do your Robbie Savage, and straight away you can just say anything because people will laugh because there's energy, which is what he knows. That's why he does it, because he puts his point across. He's engaging. But someone like Wayne, so the quality of the voice sometimes dictates whether you can then do them in comedy, because they just sometimes, no matter how good they are, they don't make people laugh.
And like a bit like Jamie Carragher, when I first did an impression of him, went to record it, and then there was a whole spitting thing, and I thought, I don't really want to, but it's like what we're talking about here, it's very much about Monday Night Football, Gary, you know what I mean? It's like, pretty angry, you know what I mean? And I thought, but I very much kind of, you have to, what we're talking about with his mouth, and it sounds as if you're trying to do like a spitting motion, and I got really paranoid about that for ages, because I thought, I don't want people to think I'm doing like secretly as if I'm trying to spit because of the incident that happened with him. So I was a bit paranoid about putting that one out there. But
Hannah, because I mean, this is something that in my day we never had that thought really. But I mean, Gabby Logan was around, and Claire Balding just about when I was doing my show. But now you've got people like Karen Carney, Alex Scott, and others, as women and commentators, Ailey Barber, people like that. Are you doing a lot of them as well?
No, I think it's good. It's something I'm going to start to do, and start to kind of work on the female voices. It's just a bit, I think, because I've been doing a few different male voices, I've kind of got into that bracket. But then it's because they're new female presenters, you don't want to come across as if you're mocking them, because actually what I work in a lot of football, and I've got a football podcast and things. So I don't want it to come across as if I'm taking the mickey out of them, because what they're doing is a great thing for women in sport, and having females commentating, presenting football is fantastic. So I'm kind of a bit reserved as to, when you write a script, you want to pick out those little those mannerisms they've got that you want to exaggerate a little bit within the impression. And I think there's a fine line between that being funny or coming across like you're actually mocking them. So it's something I want to get into, but just kind of being very careful with the job that I have as well. If any producer saw it and was like, you can't do that. Can't do that.
If you're doing something, doing their voice to put a joke across, like that one we just did about Piers and Mary Berry, actually, there was nothing critical about either of them. It was only me afterwards that was being mean about Piers. But that sort of sketch, it was just wordplay. So I mean, if you can do that with Alex Scott, Ailey Barber, whoever it might be, then you're not really commenting on them. You're just using their voice to put that joke across, which I think is fine then, because they've got great voices. And
they have.
It's always an issue. I had it years ago with Julian Clary. Weirdly, I did my impression of Julian back in about 1992 on stage, and everybody in those days, every impression is worth their salt, was doing their Julian Clary impression. And I got approached by this fellow in Manchester, about 1992, 94 something, and he came up to me. He said, "You shouldn't be doing that because you're not gay." And I said, "Well, what difference does that make?" And of course now it's even more of an issue. But you just think if you're ignoring people because you think, "Oh, I better not," surely that's more. Or whatever the word is, whether it's racist, sexist, homophobic, if you're not doing those people because of that reason, then you're excluding them from your act, so you're excluding them from that platform, if you like. It's such a difficult issue, but as I say, I think if you're just using the voice to convey a joke, and it's not about them, then that's fine.
Well, I know we talked about this, Alistair, about my doing Micah Richards, and of course I do people like Eubank, and there is a fine line. I discussed this with Rory a while ago about him doing Trevor McDonald, and he would put all the makeup on, and he just wouldn't do that these days. But I think, as you say, if you're using the voice, you're making a joke, it's not at their expense. I mean, it's very difficult, as I say, it is a fine line, but mostly I think it's doable. And I think the Micah Richards there, and the joke wasn't on Micah Richards, it was on Roy, so it worked beautifully. Just to say, Adam Diggle, who was a first-time guest on the Sketch Show, although I've interviewed him for the earlier series. Adam's just dropped a note in on the live stream to praise your Piers Morgan, saying how difficult it is. It's a slightly beige impression, and I think you did a good job of it. He said ruddy brilliant. He said
that's very kind. I'll tell you the basis for it. If you want to know the basis for it, weirdly, it's John Major. It's almost the voice I used to do years ago for John Major, and it's the same sort of placement, but it's just looser, lazier.
We had a show very early in the series with, in fact, I think it might have been this first show with Danny Postal and Darren Altman, both doing versions of Piers Morgan that both absolutely spot on, and both entirely different. And it's interesting how different impressionists will take a voice and make it work. And then if you put them side by side and indeed next to the actual person, they don't work. But it just somehow, you can sell them on your own, as it were. Also, James Walker has sent something on the live stream asking you about your praising your football impressions, Alistair, from years gone by, and asking you to do a couple, I think. But actually, we've probably done plenty now, and we're going to move on with the next sketch. This is by Garth Ap Thomas. Garth is a regular contributor, a brilliant writer, and this is a location kind of sketch. It's got Kirsty.
Yeah.
That's Hannah. We've got Phil. I'm going to do Phil. And we've got Dominic Cummings somewhere in there. It'll all make sense or not, as the case may be.
But
so, Alistair,
I'll throw something in.
Well, is it a bit Geordie, sort of something like that? I don't know. Really.
He sounds a little bit like Melvin Bragg, actually, but a bit more arrogant. It's slightly,
on the South Berkshire. Well, anyway, I'm going to leave that in your capable hands.
I'll throw something at it.
So here we go. It's location.
Hello, I'm Kirsty Alsop.
And I'm Phil Spencer.
And welcome to Location.
Today we're in London seeking a house that's fit for a super forecaster.
Yes, our guest is none other than the disgraced and embittered political advisor, Dominic Cummings.
Great to have you on the show, Dom.
Yeah, thanks.
I read in your application form that you have a rather unusual architectural influence.
Yes, I'm fascinated by the film You Only Live Twice.
James Bond, of course. Yes, he's a hero of mine as well.
Oh, no, I don't like James Bond. I like Blofeld.
But isn't he the evil baddie?
Well, that depends on your interpretation of the storyline.
Actually, it's pretty much accepted that Blofeld is the bad guy.
Well, maybe among the lovey elite in the media, but I feel such a view is short-sighted.
That's a bit ironic coming from you. How would you describe him?
How would I describe him? A ruthless megalomaniac determined to seize control of the planet. So what's not to like, eh?
So how does your Blofeld man crush influence your choice of home?
Well, I'd love to live in a hollowed-out, dormant volcano, Phil.
Gosh.
Somewhere quiet to develop my plans for global domination.
No pressure, then.
Do you think you could find me such a lair?
You've specified you want to live in a West London postcode, so a volcano might be a bit of a push.
Dormant or otherwise.
And if one were available, it would almost certainly command a strong price premium.
Well, I am open to other options.
Such as?
Well, how about an isolated and impenetrable luxury cliff-top mansion?
Somewhere quiet to plot the downfall of mankind?
Already you know me so well, Kirsty.
Hang on, this sounds like Blofeld's pad, the 007 film of On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yes, that's right.
But Dom, I know the best Bond adventure for you.
Oh, really? What's that?
For your eyes only. Well, there we are. This kind of cut out just as you were talking about the hollowed-out dormant volcano, Alistair, as Dom. So I don't know whether anyone else missed that, but it's kind of undermined the next joke. However, what do we think of that? I enjoyed doing that. I realised halfway through that doing Phil Spencer is a bit of a one note impression for me. I think you did a nice Kirsty there, and
I went a bit Diane Abbott there, didn't I? Well, actually, yes. What I think is that Kirsty also talking a bit like Diane Abbott. I think I kind of went there a little bit towards the end, but I actually listened to her earlier on. She was doing some sort of knitting program on YouTube, and I was like, oh my goodness, why have I not watched this program before? So a bit Kirsty / Diane as well. So for that one,
listen, close enough. And Alistair, the Dom, I think you should be pretty happy with that, I think.
Well, yeah, thanks very much. It's hard doing people, as I said before, who don't have much energy. It's hard to put a joke across, really. But and it was also veering towards Bob Mortimer quite a few times. But there you go.
Have you ever done that on stage, either of you, where you've started out an impression, perhaps one that isn't completely kind of nailed down in there, and suddenly wavered off into something else, and either rescued it or just let it go and realized what you're doing and made a joke of it to the audience? Is that, because I used to occasionally do that, especially when you were doing 3 gigs in a night. By the time you got to the midnight one, you just didn't know what you were doing anymore.
Years ago, I had a routine for Michael Owen to do, and for whatever reason, I always found it very difficult to get into Michael's voice. I don't know what it was really, but it was just because it was a very unusual placement, and it was an enjoyable voice to do. But for some reason, I kept going into Peter Beardsley, and I remember Beardsley was dominating, and I'd say Michael Owen was saying, I go, oh no, that's the wrong voice. It was just something about those two. They're not even similar, but I'd leap into the wrong one. But yeah, for some reason that was difficult.
So something, Hannah,
was difficult to hit.
Oh, Keegan, yeah. Well, Keegan's one of those voices. I think that to me, he was, I'd love it, somewhere in the back of the throat, which is where I would place McEnroe and place Kermit. They're all in that slightly enclosed.
Well, I had a problem with him because he sounded at the time, this is years ago, there was a program called what was it called, The Word on Channel 4, presented by this guy Terry Christian, and Terry was from Manchester, so it's like, it's quite a long way away really, but for some reason he had a similar sort of approach to Kevin, and sometimes when I was doing Kevin, I couldn't get Kevin out and it would go into Terry Christian, and so that was really hard. Shall I tell you a little story about Kevin Keegan? Have we got time?
Yeah, please.
I'd never met Kevin until about 3 years ago, and I did an event with him in Edinburgh, and what a guy. That was what you were talking about early on, right at the start, Hannah, meeting somebody. I was quite unnerved because as a kid, he was my sister's hero, actually, and I'd never met him and always had a great respect for him as a player and a manager and a person. I just thought he was a great guy. So I met him, and they said to me, we want you to do an impression of Kevin. And I went, okay, at this event, and he's speaking before you. My God, he's a good speaker. He was hilarious. His timing's brilliant. So I thought, well, one thing I won't do definitely is that I would love it. So before the gig, about 2 hours before, we're doing a little, sound check and that. And then there's Kevin for the first time I'm meeting him. And he says, oh, it's great to meet you, Alistair. I just wanted to check, my famous, I would love it. And I thought, oh, here we go. He said, you are going to do it, aren't you? I went, what? He said, well, my wife, we can't stay, sadly, for the night, so she's going to see you, and then we've got to cop off, we've got to get off rather early for a flight. So she's not going to stay afterwards, but she would love it. I mean, if you would do that, that's what she wants to be, because she used to love your impression of me on that program you did, and she would love it if you did. I would love it. It was a weird experience of him saying, please do the thing.
Everything's frozen.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. There you go. Back. You froze on my screen there in the middle of that anecdote. So,
I could see it. Okay,
it didn't.
I could see it. It was great. It was great. I tell you, one impression that's difficult is between Nicola Sturgeon and Lorraine Kelly.
Oh yeah.
So Lorraine Kelly, the crossover there. So hello and welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking, and then with Nicola Sturgeon, she speaks from the front actually of her mouth when she's addressing the public, and it's very hard sometimes to keep that wee bit of a lisp at the front of your mouth and not go, it's straight into Lorraine Kelly, and it's trying not to. That crossover sometimes is a little bit tough with a Scottish accent, anyway.
So Hannah, where do your ambitions lie? If you're presenting now, you're doing these. I mean, they're so good, these impressions, I've got to say, and the accents and everything are so spot on. Is this something that you do as a sideline? Do you want to make it your main thing? Are you happy to keep both going together? Where do you see things going?
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I love impersonations, and I love watching TV programs with the kids. And I'll mimic characters, and they're like, "Mummy, stop it." I get really frustrated by it, and it's something that I absolutely love, but I don't know what kind of direction I could go in. I have a YouTube channel, make some videos and things like that, try and make them topical, but I don't know ultimately where the door would be for me to go through with impressions as a female, whether it's maybe doing some voiceover work or not. I mean, I do, I've got a day job, run a business with my husband, and then I do presenting on the side, and then, kind of the impressions stand-up comedy as a thing that I just love to do. I just absolutely love it. I could do stuff like this all day, have scripts and impressions, but it's just finding where that niche is for for maybe my ability at this moment in time. I don't know, but ideally, I used to dream of being like Catherine Tate, you know, and do sketches like that. For me, that was my dream growing up, and I used to watch her on repeat constantly and mimic everything she did. And to me, she was like a real growing up. I used to think one day, you know, I'd love to be like that and to do the sketches she does. But I think the reality of it is, as you get older, it's like, where are the doors? How can you get through them, kind of thing. So I don't know.
I think impression shows are slightly cyclical in that, you know, certainly when, I mean, rules change all the time in television, but when we did our show, it was 1999 we started, but there hadn't really been an impression show without politics for 7 or 8 years. Then after us, there was Dead Ringers and everything else, and then Stevenson and Culshaw. But I think they finished about 6 years ago. So I think the time is right now for a new sort of impressionist sketch show to be put forward. So I think you should.
Here it is. I mean, we're doing it as we speak.
We're doing it. Yeah.
You know, so we were having a chat with Al Foran last week about this, and he was talking about the fact that there's so many brilliant young impressionists around now. Like, and he's probably in his early 30s. We've got Schaefer Bates, who is staggeringly brilliant, and Charlie Hopkinson, and, you know, all of those sorts of people. Katja Kavinga is another one, and he was saying perhaps it's time to put a, you know, to pitch a show, perhaps start it online, bring everyone in. He said, because I think he was pandering, you know, to his host on that occasion, saying we could have them impressionists also who are older. I thought, you can see this poor old sod with his grey hair sitting here, feeling sorry for him. But actually, you're right, Alistair. It does go in little patches of interest, and it's been a while. So the Imitation Game didn't really do it. It was a kind of more of a panel thing. It didn't work very well. But anyway, that's by the way. We'll move on. We're going to do another sketch. It's. Let me get rid of okay. This is Character Countdown. Again, it's by Rachel E. Thorne, and it stars Nick Hewer, which is another difficult impression for Alistair. Not sure which list this is on.
Anyway.
The H list.
We've got Nick Hewer. We've got Mary Poppins.
Oh no, I don't have this. I thought we weren't doing this one.
Oh.
Yeah, I've got the Prime Minister. No, I've got the Prime Minister's support group with Julie Andrews.
Oh, I thought we've got our lines crossed, so we can't do this one. Oh, okay.
Controversial. I'm sorry. I've got the Julie Andrews, the Prime Minister's support group one here. Yeah.
Because we had two sketches that were similar, and I probably picked up the wrong one. That I thought we were going to do this one because there were more voices in it. Okay. Well, look. Then we're not going to do this sketch, everybody, and this will just be one of those shows that, unless we could wing it, no, maybe not. All right, so that's gone. I'm just as we speak. This is live telly, everyone. Alistair, come on, you've done all this sort of stuff on live telly. You know how this works. So what we'll do, we'll move straight on to the next sketch, which is it stars the following people: Philip Schofield, Alistair. I'm sorry about this. I'm dumping all these really difficult, kind of unrecognizable voices on you, but I've got every faith. We've got Holly Willoughby in this, and we've got Vladimir Putin. And I'm going to take Putin, because no one knows what he sounds like, and B, you know, I can probably just about get away with that. So it takes place in the This Morning studio. And it's an interview with Vladimir Putin. It's written by Kate Lipson, the aforementioned daughter of mine. So we better give this everything and make sure it comes.
I have no television planned of any sort, by the way, after this, if we call this television. So this could be the worst impression I ever do, and it could be the last one I ever do. So it's not great, but...
Listen, I guarantee it's better than my Putin.
No,
whatever happens,
it's awful.
All right,
we're relying on you here, Hannah, to be the
Oh God, right.
Okay, here we go.
Hello and welcome to This Morning. We got a very exciting guest today, not just because it's the first time he's ever agreed to speak to British media. Please welcome the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin.
come here and sit down, lovely.
Hello.
So thank you for joining us. Now, am I right in saying that you have something very specific to tell the British public?
Yes, Russia has been increasing its supplies of the nerve agent Novichok, and
sorry, hold on.
Did he just say that? Did he? Am I the only one that just heard that?
No, I heard it too. You said Novichok.
No.
It's no problem. I mispronounce things from time to time. You just have to hold your hands up.
It does not matter how you say it, only how we are about to use it.
Use what?
Oh, Phil, seriously?
No, come on, nothing wrong. I just want to hear him say the nerve agent's name again.
Oh, go on then, Mr. Buting. Say the name and we can move on from this silliness.
Say Novichok. Choke!
He's done it again!
This reminds me of when we had that satanic cult on and Phil, you kept saying sex instead of six.
Oh God, I did do that.
Oh my gosh, I'm actually crying.
Shit, I'm sick of this fucking farce. Call those women instead.
Hey, now poisoning is one thing, but don't you dare swear on live morning TV.
Guys, honestly, that was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And first, two things. Holly, bang on. And that's on your A list, Alistair.
I just wanted to say it's dancing on ice. That's all I wanted to say in the beginning. I'm here in the studio. Obviously, it's just what the buzzword to get started there.
You absolutely, both of you, utterly. Given that we've never read this sketch before, right? So this is a first table read. So we haven't read it together. You both of you completely worked that hysteria, that sort of that nudging laughter. And you're miles apart right now. And that took some doing. It really sounded great. I hope our listeners got that, because it's not that's something you could imagine putting that sketch together for TV or even for radio, and it would take a little bit of work to get the timing of all of those little squeaks and guffaws and little sniggers under the hand.
Well, if you're frozen on my screen, but I tell you,
she's back
that's
now.
The benefit. That's the benefit of good writing, and not just because it is written by somebody whose surname is also Lipson, but that's a very easy sketch to perform because the writing is really good. It's tight, it moves on, nothing's too long, it's got a good beginning, middle, and end. What more do you want? You can't fail really to make that sketch work, because it's really strong.
Well, I thank you for that, and I listen. I'm obviously basking in paternal pride here, but she is a very good writer, my daughter, and she, as we often say in the family, she's the funny one. Which is depressing, but also true. She's actually working right now. She's just finishing up the National Film Theatre School comedy course with Bill Dare, who of course is my old nemesis on Dead Ringers. I don't think Bill knows that my daughter is one of his star pupils, but if he does, he hasn't taken it out on her. What
was her other sketch? Her other sketch was very strong. That was the Roy Keane one.
The Micah Richards. Yeah, Micah Richards.
Yeah.
Just very clear.
She's somebody I don't want to overpraise my daughter, partly because I can praise her and she doesn't really give a shit. It was interesting that, Hannah, you were talking about doing voices for your, that you're watching TV or something, and you're being judged by your children.
Yeah.
That kind of mum thing. When I used to do that with my kids, I'm going, this going back a few years, they would just go, oh, God, fuck's sake. It was really disdainful. It was just, and I'd say, well, I'm kind of working, I'm trying to, just trying to watch it. And oh, God's sake. But you see, obviously my daughter, my youngest, obviously took that all on board, all that comedy timing of mine. And then actually made it funny as opposed to what I do with it. So there we are. So where are we up to? We've unfortunately only had we for this part of the show, because this will be the second part of the show, we've only had the 2 sketches, but I think they were good sketches. I think they went well. You both performed them absolutely beautifully. I think it's time, because we were going to talk about this a little bit more earlier, and we didn't stop saving time, but now I'm filling time. But actually, it's something that I wanted to explore a bit further. The idea of the doing the voice outside of your natural gender, because we had Danny Postel on, and you did Diane Abbott before, Hannah, and it was gorgeous. It was a beautiful impression, and Danny has done that. And in fact, I think Diane Abbott has blocked him on Twitter.
Oh, really?
Because so many people have enjoyed it so much. It's not nasty, but it kind of picks up on that slightly dithery tone and that sort of that indecisiveness and mistaking numbers.
I think actually what it is that she was drinking alcohol on a bus in a public place when she shouldn't be drinking alcohol at all. I think that's a problem. People were mocking her. That's basically, that's where you would go with it. She sat there. I did a video of her with a G&T in a can, as if I was sat on a bus, because that's what she did. I think it was maybe a margarita or something in a can. But I mean, she's done a few things, maybe not to help herself. I think that's where she is the person you could really over-exaggerate her actions.
I think that's right. But she's become almost cartoonish. But where I was going with this, actually, because with your male football manager impressions, apart from Dyche, which you somehow manufacture from God knows where, when you take on, say, you do Pep, don't you? Mm-hmm. You're not actually trying to gravelize, if that's a word, the voice. You're relying on what is it? What are you doing with the impression? Because it works beautifully.
At the city, he kind of turned his head a lot. And then we go to Conte. I was hoping that he would come back into the Premier League to see his Spurs. So it's I'm just kind of going a little bit deeper. But with Pep particularly, when I put my hairnet on, we need more money. And scratching the head and that sort of thing. I don't think sometimes my partner will say you need to go a bit deeper, or sometimes he'll say that's too deep for certain people. But yeah, it's a weird one. I don't kind of go to a gravelly place, but maybe I should go a little bit deeper sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah, because that kind of leads to something we've talked about a lot on the show over the last year and a half or so, is the idea of pitch. And I put it to Darren Altman that pitch was possibly the least important element of an impression, because you can find so much in an impression with the voice, with the accent, with the delivery, with the the kind of the rhythm of the voice. Because, and I mentioned it because Danny Postel would do Boris. Now, Danny's natural voice is pretty high, and then you get somebody like well, perhaps someone like, I can't really do Boris, but yes, and I would be doing it down here. And we all did Morgan Freeman on the same show. That was Darren and Danny and I, and we all kind of got close to it. I was probably the closest in pitch. But do you think pitch is? I mean, I don't know whether you've ever bothered to rank the elements of impressions, but pitch always seems to me the least important thing. Alistair, is that?
It depends how you're doing it and where you're doing it. I think if you're doing something. Sometimes I have to do voice matches in commercials. So years ago, how many times have I said that today? Years ago, dear Ray Wilkins was the voice of Tango, if you remember back in. I mean, that's like 94 or something. And he had this phrase, the big fella's just come around a corner and given him a right good slapping. Yeah, all right. And it was all this, the way he did this, the big fella's just come around a corner and give him a right good slapping. And I had to voice match for him a couple of times because he'd be away playing. I think he was still playing then or managing QPR, and he couldn't get to the studio to do the ad. So they'd say, we need one line of Ray Wilkins. Will you do it? So in that instance, you've got to get the pitch exactly right because it's got to match. But if you're on stage, if you get the essence of the person, I suppose that's fine. And even, before my generation was Mike Yarwood, And I worked with him once, Mike, about 1997, and he said, "Oh, you lot have just taken it to a new level, because I was more interested in the way people moved, and I could never get the voices that you get, the variety you get. But when you watch an old Yarwood clip or something, the way he does, for instance, the step toes, it's extraordinary. And he used to do this wonderful thing where he'd do the sun over there, and he'd do the dad over there, and the face would change completely. But all he had to do was to chase that way, and he'd do that one down that way, and then he'd do this one here. And it was just the way he did something about it, and the way he pulled his face. And Phil Cool, who's never talked about as one of the greatest impressionists, and he really was. But Phil Cool, if anybody watching doesn't know him, look at YouTube of Phil Cool, because the things he would do. I mean, Phil's got this incredible voice of his own, which is really very deep, and he comes from Chorley, and everything's very slow, and he's got an incredible face, but he'd pull these faces and turn himself into that person, and it didn't really matter, even though he did sound like the people, because what he was doing with his face is unique. Nobody else has done it before or since. So for him, pitch didn't matter at all. It was about the
Phil Cool was very underrated as an impressionist, and that's a very interesting topic. We probably haven't got time now to explore that further, but I'm sure we will on future episodes. The idea of how you become so absorbed, certainly if you're doing it visually. I mean, we know this is mostly a sound medium, so we're reliant on trying to get as close as we can vocally. But when you're on stage, a lot of what you're doing is selling the whole package of someone. I used to do Beardsley. You talked about Beardsley a bit earlier. I didn't spend a lot of time on the voice, but I did the face. And once you got the face, don't turn into the beard. And so you'd have the whole of that, kind of feeding into the impression. Well, look,
what I find, just to finish off on that one thing, if I may, one thing to finish off on that. I think often you work from the outside as an impressionist, or actors would say you work from the outside in, so you're observing something and then you take it on. But one of the most exciting things that I ever did was years ago. There we are again, years ago.
How many years ago this time?
1996, actually. I was working in Scotland on this show, and I had to do Glenn Hoddle. It was the first time I'd ever done Glenn Hoddle in Vision. And so they put a little mic on me, as you'd expect. And I was doing McLean, and I was just doing this impression and doing the sketches as it was written. And then sound engineer came up to me and he said, "Alistair, can you stop fiddling with your mic?" And I said, "I'm not fiddling with the mic." He said, "Well, there's this sort of noise going on when you're doing Glenn around the microphone. I don't know what it is." So I said, "I'm not touching the mic." So we did another take, and he said, "I'm sorry, getting that noise again." And I realized that what I was doing, completely without thinking about it, was fiddling with the top of my jacket. In those days, all those zip-up coats. And I realized that's what Glenn did, and I hadn't decided to do it. Just by being Glenn as an actor, I suppose. I started doing this thing subconsciously, what he always did, which was fiddling with this zip on his jacket. And they said it's interfering with the sound, don't do it. And I went, okay. But
that's a great observation to go out on. And as I say, it's something I'd like to return to in a later episode. But for now, for this episode, first of all, let me say thank you to our live stream viewers. I hope you've enjoyed this experience. I forgive me if I looked like I didn't know what the hell was going on for 3/4 of the time, but that's only because I didn't. So I was kind of trying to do sketches, do some interviews, and deal with this slightly puzzling console in front of me on my screen. But I hope it was. I hope most of it worked. And let me just then say thank you, of course, to the brilliant Alistair McGowan and the equally brilliant Hannah East. Thank you both so much for making this first live stream and podcast an absolute joy. And until next time, it's thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again on Making an Impression. Bye-bye. Right, we're done. I'm going to just end the thing.